The morning sun rose over Seoul like a silent witness to secrets. Golden light filtered through the towering glass windows of Seoul Royal Medical Center, painting the polished marble floors in shades of amber and pearl. This was not an ordinary hospital. This was where South Korea's elite came to heal. Politicians recovering from scandals that newspapers would never print. Celebrities hiding procedures behind whispered appointments. Billionaires demanding private wings for conditions they refused to name. The air inside smelled of expensive antiseptic and quiet power. Nurses moved like shadows. Doctors walked like kings. And somewhere between the whispered diagnoses and the silk-draped private suites, a woman named Amara Okafor prepared for another shift. She stood before her locker in the nurses' changing room, adjusting the crisp white collar of her uniform. Her reflection stared back at her. Beautiful dark skin that glowed beneath the fluorescent lights. Soft expressive eyes that had seen too much cruelty and still chose kindness. Natural elegance that could not be taught, only inherited. She was 28 years old. Nigerian-born. And one of the most skilled nurses in this entire hospital. Yet every single day she had to prove her worth all over again. Amara took a breath, smoothed her uniform, and walked out to face the world that refused to see her. The VIP wing buzzed with controlled chaos. A famous actress had been admitted overnight for exhaustion. Her manager demanded absolute privacy. Her publicist demanded faster treatment. Her boyfriend, a singer from a popular idol group, demanded that no one look at him. Amara moved through it all with practiced calm. He checked vitals, adjusted 4 lines, answered questions from junior nurses who were too afraid to approach the celebrity's entourage directly. No one thanked her. No one acknowledged her expertise. But she did her job anyway. Because that was who Amara Okafor was. The trouble began at 9:47 a.m. Amara was reviewing a patient chart near the central nursing station when a cluster of wealthy women entered the VIP waiting lounge. They were wives of conglomerate chairmen, daughters of senators, women who had never worked a single day in their lives but believed they understood the value of everything. Their designer bags cost more than Amara's yearly salary. Their jewelry caught the light like frozen tears. Their laughter was sharp and dismissive. One of them, a woman in her 50s with surgically perfect features, noticed Amara immediately. Her eyes traveled from Amara's face to her uniform to her hands. And then she stopped. Her painted lips curled. "What is that on your finger?" Amara did not look up. She continued writing notes on her clipboard, her handwriting neat and precise. "I asked you a question," the woman said louder. The other women gathered closer. Their curiosity sharpened like knives. Amara finally raised her eyes. Calm, patient, unmoved. "I apologize," she said softly. "Were you speaking to me?" The woman's smile turned cruel. "That ring on your finger. Is that supposed to be an engagement ring?" The other women leaned in. And then they saw it. On Amara's left hand, resting against her dark skin like a secret made visible, was a ring that did not belong in a nurse's salary. The diamond was flawless. Massive. Set in a band of black platinum that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. It was the kind of ring that cost more than apartments. More than cars. More than some people's entire lives. One of the younger women gasped. "Is that real?" Amara said nothing. She simply returned to her chart. But the women would not let it go. "She probably bought it herself," one of them whispered loudly. "You know how they are. Always pretending to be more than they actually are. Or maybe someone gave it to her as a joke," another added with a cruel laugh. The oldest woman, the one who had started this, stepped closer to Amara. Her perfume was suffocating. Her voice was ice. "You're engaged?" she asked mockingly. "To who? Another nurse? A janitor perhaps?" The laughter spread like poison. "A woman like you should be grateful anyone proposed at all," she continued. "Do you even know what real men expect from their wives? Can you cook Korean food? Do you understand our culture?" More laughter. Sharper now. Amara's hand tightened around her pen. But her face remained still. "You should sell that ring," the woman said with false sweetness. "Buy yourself some lessons in knowing your place." Amara looked up. Her eyes met the woman's directly. For a moment, something flickered behind her calm expression. Not anger. Not hurt. Something deeper. Something patient. "Thank you for your concern," Amara said softly. But I know exactly where I belong. She turned and walked away. Behind her, the laughter continued. The next hour passed in silence. Amara treated 3 more patients, changed 2 floor bags, comforted a frightened teenager who was about to go into surgery. She smiled at everyone. He was kind to everyone. But inside her chest, something heavy sat against her heart. 8 years. She had been in Korea for 8 years. She had graduated top of her class. She had saved lives that others had given up on. She had earned her place in this hospital through skill, dedication, and sacrifice. They saw nothing but her skin. At exactly 10:32 a.m., the first rumor began to spread. It started with a security guard near the main entrance. He received a call on his radio. His face went pale. He immediately contacted his supervisor. Within 3 minutes, every security officer in the building had been repositioned. Dr. Park Sung-ho, the hospital's chief medical director, was mid-conversation with the department head when his personal phone rang. He glanced at the screen. His expression changed instantly. Without a word, he ended his conversation and rushed toward the main lobby. The hospital's administrative director, a woman named Choi Min-young, nearly dropped her coffee when her assistant burst into her office. Director Choi, the convoy is arriving. What convoy? AfroKorean Global Holdings. 10 vehicles. 3 minutes out. Director Choi's face drained of color. Clear the front entrance. Now. Whispers spread through the hospital like fire. Someone important is coming. Someone powerful. Someone terrifying. Doctors stopped walking. Nurses paused their rounds. Patients near windows pressed their faces against the glass. And in the VIP waiting lounge, the same wealthy women who had mocked Amara minutes earlier began checking their makeup in compact mirrors. Whoever it is, one of them said excitedly, they must be incredibly powerful. Maybe it's a chaebol chairman? Or a celebrity investor? The oldest woman smiled with anticipation. Perhaps I should introduce myself. Networking opportunities don't come every day. Outside the hospital, the morning traffic had stopped. Police officers redirected cars. Hospital security formed a perimeter. And the sound began. Low at first. Distant. The rumble of engines. Multiple engines. Moving in perfect synchronization. Amara was walking toward the supply room when she heard it. She paused near a window. Her eyes drifted toward the hospital's main entrance. And her heart stopped. 10 identical black luxury SUVs rolled into the hospital compound like a funeral procession for enemies. Maybach jealous vehicles. Blacked-out windows. Diplomatic plates that no traffic officer would dare to question. They moved in perfect formation. Stopped in perfect alignment. The engines fell silent at the exact same moment. For 3 seconds nothing moved. The hospital held its breath. And then the door of the lead vehicle opened. A man stepped out. Athletic. Devastatingly handsome. He wore a perfectly tailored black suit that cost more than most people earned in a decade. The fabric moved with his body like it had been designed to worship him. His black hair was styled with effortless precision. His jaw was sharp enough to cut glass. His dark eyes held the cold patience of a predator who never needed to chase. But the detail that made security officers stiffen. The detail that made the hospital director bow immediately. The detail that confirmed exactly who he was an intricate Korean underworld dragon curled from beneath his collar, its scales climbing the left side of his neck, its eyes seeming to watch anyone who dared to look too long. The ink was ancient, earned, a mark of absolute authority in a world most people pretended didn't exist. Kong Jitae AfroKorean, the Black Dragon of Seoul, chairman of AfroKorean Global Holdings, and the most feared man on 3 continents. He had arrived. The hospital director rushed forward. Chairman Kong. We weren't expecting. Jitae raised one hand. The director stopped mid-sentence. Not because of the gesture. Because of the look in Jitae's eyes. They were searching. Scanning the lobby. Looking for someone. Inside the hospital, chaos erupted silently. Doctors pretended to look busy while stealing glances toward the entrance. Nurses whispered to each other. Executives adjusted their ties. The wealthy women in the VIP lounge pressed forward, trying to see who had arrived. Who is that? AfroKorean Global Holdings. That's the conglomerate, isn't it? The one with investments in everything. He's half Korean, half Nigerian. I heard he built his empire before he turned 25. I heard he's single. I heard he's dangerous. I heard. The whispers stopped. As he was walking now. Through the lobby. Past the executives trying to greet him. Past the hospital director attempting to follow. Past the security officers who instinctively stepped aside. He walked like he owned the air around him. And everyone moved out of his path. Amara stood near the nurse's station, her clipboard still in her hands. She had heard the commotion. She had seen the crowd gathering near the windows. But she had not moved. Because she already knew. She could feel him. The way she always could. Jitae entered the VIP wing. His eyes found her immediately. Across the polished floors. Across the crowd of gaping faces. Across everything that had ever tried to separate them. He found her. He walked toward her. Fully. Every step deliberate. Every step making a statement. The wealthy women who had mocked Amara minutes earlier now stood frozen, their mouths open, their cruel laughter forgotten. The doctors and nurses watched in disbelief. Even the patients peeked out from their rooms. Jitae stopped directly in front of Amara. His tall frame towered over her. His presence seemed to block out the rest of the world. His cold eyes that had made grown men beg for mercy, softened imperceptibly. Only she could see the change. Only she knew what it meant. He reached down. Took her hand in his. The contrast was striking. His large hand marked with the subtle tattoo ink that extended to his knuckles, against her smaller hand with its dark, beautiful skin. He lifted her hand slowly. Deliberately. Until her engagement ring caught the light. And then he kissed it. His lips pressed against the diamond that he had given her. The diamond that had once belonged to his grandmother. The diamond that marked her as his. The hospital went completely silent. Jitae raised his head. His eyes swept across the room. Across the executives who had never once defended Amara. Across the doctors who had treated her like a servant. Across the wealthy women who had laughed at her ring. His gaze settled on them. Cold, patient, final. And then he spoke. His voice was low. A sound that demanded attention without raising a single decibel. My fiancé has been waiting for me. No one moved. No one breathed. The oldest woman, the one who had told Amara to know her place, began trembling visibly. Jitae turned back to Amara. His expression shifted. For everyone watching it was subtle. But Amara saw everything. The pride in his eyes. The anger at what she had likely endured. The love he rarely showed in public. The promise that this moment would change everything. Are you ready to leave? He asked softly. Amara looked at him. After 8 years of silence. After 8 years of discrimination. After 8 years of being invisible. He finally smiled. I've been ready. He took her hand fully in his. Interlaced their fingers. And together they walked out of the VIP wing. Past the gaping executives. Past the trembling women. Past everyone who had ever underestimated her. Outside the 10 SUVs waited. Bodyguards stood at attention. The morning sun blazed overhead. And as Kang Jitae Adekunal opened the door for his fiancée, the woman he had chosen above empires, above bloodlines, above everything the world said he should want, he paused. Looked back at the hospital one final time. His expression held no rage. No satisfaction. Only certainty. The certainty that no one would ever disrespect her again. The door closed. The convoy departed. And inside Seoul Royal Medical Center the whispers began to spread. Who is she? How did they meet? Why did he choose her? The questions would multiply over the coming days. The answers would shake the foundations of Seoul's elite. But for now only one thing was certain. Everything had changed. If you're wondering how a Nigerian nurse became engaged to the most dangerous man in Asia, stay with me. Because this story is about to reveal secrets that will change everything you think you know about love, power, and sacrifice. Please like, share, and subscribe. Now let's begin. 3 years earlier, the emergency room of Seoul Royal Medical Center was chaos. A 12-car pileup on the Gangnam Expressway had flooded the trauma unit with victims. Broken bones. Internal bleeding. Burns. The screaming never stopped. Amara Okafor had been on shift for 14 hours. Her feet ached. Her eyes burned. But she kept moving. Because that was all she could do. The next patient was brought in at 11:47 p.m. Male. Late 20s. Multiple lacerations across his torso. The paramedics were frantic. He was found near Itaewon. No identification. He's losing blood fast. Amara pulled on fresh gloves and immediately began assessment. The wounds were deep. Too precise to be from a car accident. These were knife wounds. Someone had tried very hard to kill this man. She worked quickly. Applied pressure. Called for additional units of blood. Monitored his vitals. The other nurses were overwhelmed with the accident victims. Amara was alone with this patient for the first critical minutes. His eyes flickered open. Dark. Piercing. Even through the haze of blood loss they held a terrifying awareness. "Don't move," Amara said firmly. "You've lost a lot of blood. I need you to stay still." His lips parted. His voice was barely audible. "They're coming." Amara's hands paused for a fraction of a second. "Who's coming?" His eyes met hers directly. "Don't let them take me." Before she could respond, the trauma unit doors burst open. 6 men in black suits rushed in. They were not doctors. They were not police. Their eyes scanned the room with military precision. And when they found the wounded man on Amara's table, their expressions hardened. The leader stepped forward. He was older. Scarred. His voice was commanding. "We're taking him now." Amara stood her ground. "This patient is in critical condition. He cannot be moved. You don't understand. He needs to come with us." "No." Amara's voice did not waver. "You don't understand. If you move him now he will die. Is that what you want?" The man's jaw tightened. Behind him his colleagues shifted restlessly. The tension in the room became suffocating. Amara stared directly into the man's eyes. She was exhausted. Outnumbered. Clearly in danger. But she did not move. "I don't know who he is," she said quietly. "I don't know who you are. But right now he is my patient. And I will not let him die. Not tonight. Not on my watch." For a long moment no one moved. The suited men exchanged glances. And then, against all logic, the leader stepped back. "We stay until he's stable," he said reluctantly. "But no police. No reports. Do you understand?" Amara didn't understand. Not at all. But she nodded anyway. Because the only thing that mattered right now was saving a life. The surgery took 4 hours. Amara assisted the trauma surgeon through every moment. When the wounds were finally closed, when the bleeding was finally stopped, when the patient was finally stable, she collapsed into a chair beside his bed. The suited men had been watching her the entire time. They didn't speak to her. They didn't thank her. But they didn't threaten her either. Near dawn, the patient's eyes opened again. Amara was still there. Still watching his monitors. Still making sure he survived. His voice was stronger now. Rough but clear. "You didn't leave." Amara looked at him. "It's my job to stay." "No." His eyes held hers. "That's not why." She didn't respond. Because she didn't have an answer. He studied her face. Her exhausted eyes. Her hands that had worked for hours to save him. Her complete refusal to abandon a stranger. "What's your name?" he asked. "Amara." "Amara Okafor." He was silent for a moment. Then he said something she didn't expect. "I will remember that." The next morning he was gone. His bed was empty. The suited men had vanished. There was no record of his admission. No record of his treatment. It was as if he had never existed at all. Amara stood beside the empty bed for a long time. Something told her this was not over. Something told her she would see him again. She just didn't know how right she would be. 1 month later. The flowers arrived without warning. A massive arrangement of pure white peonies, Korea's flower of honor, delivered directly to the nurse's station. There was no card. No sender's name. Just the flowers. The other nurses whispered excitedly. "Who has a secret admirer? Maybe it's for Dr. Kim? She just got divorced." "No way, these are too expensive for anyone we know." Amara ignored the commotion. Until she noticed the small black envelope hidden among the stems. She opened it quietly. Inside was a single card with 2 sentences. "Thank you for my life. This is only the beginning." No signature. But somehow she knew. The flowers came every week after that. Different arrangements each time. Roses. Orchids. Lilies. Always expensive. Always anonymous. Always with a small note. I hope you rested today. Please eat well. Seoul is cold this week. Stay warm. Amara told no one about the notes. But she kept every single one. 3 months later. She was walking home after a night shift when she noticed the black car. It was parked across from her apartment building. Expensive. Tinted windows. Engine running. Amara's heart rate increased, but she forced herself to keep walking. She was 2 steps from her building's entrance when the car door opened. The scarred man from the hospital stepped out. Miss Okafor. She froze. My employer wishes to speak with you. Every instinct told her to run. But something else, curiosity perhaps or fate, told her to listen. Who is your employer? The man's expression didn't change. You saved his life. He would like to thank you properly. Amar looked at the car. At the darkened windows. At the uncertainty of what waited inside. And then she made a choice that would change everything. He got in the car. The car drove for exactly 43 minutes. Amara kept track of every turn, every stoplight, every landmark. Not because she planned to escape, but because she needed to feel in control of something. They arrived at a private estate in the hills above Seoul. The gates were massive. The walls were endless. The security was invisible but everywhere. The scarred man, who had introduced himself only as Manager Yoon, led her through gardens illuminated by soft lights. The house itself was traditional Korean architecture meeting modern luxury. Hanok-style rooflines. Glass walls. Water features that reflected the moonlight. It was breathtaking. It was terrifying. Amara was led into a private study. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. A fireplace crackling softly. And there, standing near the window with his back to her, was him. He turned slowly. The wounds she had treated were healed now. But the intensity in his eyes was exactly the same. He was even more striking than she remembered. Sharper jawline. Broader shoulders. An air of authority that made the massive room feel small. And there, curling from beneath the collar of his black shirt, the edge of that dragon tattoo. Miss Okafor, he said. His voice was calm. Measured. Sound like velvet over steel. Please. Sit. She remained standing. I prefer to know why I'm here first. His lips curved slightly. Almost imperceptibly. Something that might have been appreciation flickered in his eyes. You saved my life, he said. Against your own safety. Against the threats of my men. Against all logic. He paused. Why? Amara's expression didn't waver. Because it was the right thing to do. Many people would have stepped aside. I'm not many people. Silence stretched between them. He studied her like she was something rare. Something unexpected. Something he hadn't planned for. No, he finally said. You're not. He walked toward a side table and poured 2 cups of tea. The gesture was surprisingly domestic. Surprisingly human. I am Kang Ji-tae, he said, offering her a cup. Though I suspect you've already figured out that I am not an ordinary businessman. Amara accepted the tea but didn't drink. Knife wounds don't usually come from corporate negotiations. That almost smile again. You're intelligent, he observed. Direct. Unafraid. He tilted his head slightly. Do you know how rare that combination is? I'm a nurse, Amara replied. I don't have time to be afraid. He sat in the chair across from her. His posture was relaxed. But everything about him radiated controlled power. I'm going to be honest with you, Miss Okafor. Because you deserve honesty. He leaned forward slightly. I am the chairman of AfroKorean Global Holdings. That is public record. What is not public record is that I also control certain operations. Operations that exist outside the boundaries of traditional law. Amara's expression remained neutral. But her heart was pounding. The men who tried to kill me that night were from a rival organization, he continued. They wanted to destabilize my position. Take control of my network. You interfered with their plans simply by keeping me alive. And that makes me a target? That makes you remarkable. He stood. Walked toward the window. The moonlight caught the planes of his face, the edge of his tattoo. For 3 months I have watched over you. Discreetly. To ensure no retaliation reached you. To ensure you remained safe. Amara's breath caught. The flowers. A poor substitute for what I owed you. She stood as well. I don't need your protection. I don't need your flowers. I did my job. That's all. He turned to face her. And yet here you are. The challenge in his words was unmistakable. But so was something else. Something almost vulnerable. Why did you bring me here? Amara asked. Really? He was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was quieter. Because in 28 years, no one has ever looked at me the way you did that night in the hospital. How did I look at you? Like I was just a man. He paused. Not a weapon. Not a monster. Not a title or a bank account. Just a man who needed help. Amara didn't know how to respond. I am not a good man, Miss Okafor, he said softly. I have done things that would horrify you. I have made choices that can never be undone. But when I looked into your eyes that night... He stopped. The silence was heavy. I wanted to be better. The confession hung in the air between them. Raw. Honest. Unexpected. Amar finally spoke. I should leave. He nodded slowly. My driver will take you anywhere you want to go. She turned toward the door. Paused. Looked back at him. The flowers, she said quietly. Don't stop sending them. And then she walked out, leaving him standing alone in the moonlight, wondering if he had just made the biggest mistake of his life, or finally found its meaning. 6 weeks later, the flowers kept coming. But now so did other things. A new winter coat appeared in her locker at work. Cashmere. Designer label carefully removed. Her exact size. A week later, her aging laptop was replaced by a new one. Same files. Same background photo. Just better. Her landlord suddenly waived 2 months of rent due to building improvements. Amara knew exactly who was responsible. But she couldn't prove it. And strangely, she didn't want to. The first direct contact came in January. Her phone buzzed with an unknown number. The restaurant near your hospital has poor reviews. The one 2 blocks north is better. Try the jjigae. He stared at the message. Typed back, are you watching me? His response was immediate. Protecting. There's a difference. Is there? Pause. Then, for you I'm learning there might be. The conversations continued. Sporadic at first. Then daily. They discussed books. Korean poetry. Nigerian folklore her grandmother used to tell. He asked about her family. She asked about his childhood. Neither revealed everything. But both revealed more than they intended. Do you believe in fate? She texted one night. I believe in choices, he replied. Fate is what we call choices we were too afraid to make consciously. That's cynical. That's honest. Pause. Then another message from him. Meeting you was not my choice. But everything since then has been. She didn't respond for 2 hours. When she finally did, she wrote simply. I'm beginning to believe that too. 2 months later. Their first official date wasn't planned. Amara had been walking home from a double shift when the rain started. Not a drizzle.
A downpour. The kind that turned Seoul's streets into rivers. She ducked under a bus stop canopy, shivering in her inadequate jacket. And then a black car pulled up. The window rolled down. Jitae was in the back seat. He didn't smile. Didn't speak. Just opened the door. She got in. They drove in silence for several minutes. Finally, Amara spoke. Were you following me? I was in the area. Coincidentally. His eyes met hers in the dim light. There are no coincidences where you're concerned. The car stopped at a small restaurant. Nothing fancy. Just a family-owned place in an old neighborhood. He let her inside. The owners bowed deeply when they saw him.
Too deeply.
But they said nothing about his identity. They sat in a private room. Traditional floor seating. Warm wooden walls. The smell of home-cooked food. Why here? Amara asked. Because this is where I came as a child, Jitae said. With my mother. Before. He didn't finish. But she understood. They ate together. Simple food. Honest conversation. For 3 hours, he wasn't the Black Dragon of Seoul. He was just Jitae. A man who missed his mother. A man who read poetry when he couldn't sleep. A man who was desperately, hopelessly falling in love with a woman he had no right to want. I should warn you, he said as the meal ended. Being close to me is dangerous. I know. My enemies are powerful. Ruthless. They would hurt you to hurt me. I know. Then why are you still here? Amara looked at him. Really looked. Past the tattoos and the suits and the terrifying reputation. To the man beneath. Because for the first time in 5 years, she said softly, I don't feel invisible. His expression shifted. Something cracked behind his eyes. Something he had built walls around for decades. He reached across the table. Took her hand. His thumb traced her knuckles gently. You were never invisible, he said. The world was just too blind to see you. That night, when his driver dropped her at her apartment, Jitae walked her to the door. He didn't kiss her. Didn't push for more. He simply held her hand for one long moment. And said, I will wait as long as you need. But know this. I have already chosen. The only question is whether you will choose me too. He turned and walked back to his car. Left her standing in the doorway. Her heart beating faster than it had in years. 1 month later, Jitae's enemies struck first at dawn. Not at him. At her. Amara was walking to work when she noticed the van. White. Unmarked. Following her for 3 blocks. Her nursing training included emergency awareness. She knew when something was wrong. She ducked into a convenience store. Pretended to browse. Pulled out her phone. Before she could dial, it rang. Don't move. Jitae's voice was ice. Stay exactly where you are. My men are 30 seconds away. How did you? I always know. Stay calm. You're going to be fine. Through the store's windows, she watched as 2 black cars intercepted the van. Men in suits emerged. The confrontation was brief. Efficient. Terrifying. And then it was over. Manager Yoon entered the store. Miss Okafor, please come with me. The chairman is waiting. She was taken to Jitae's compound. He was pacing when she arrived. Something she had never seen him do. Who are they? She demanded. The Hwang Syndicate. They discovered my interest in you. They wanted leverage. So, I'm a target now. You were always going to be a target. His jaw tightened. The moment I saved you from that surgical table, you became part of my world. Amara's anger flared. You didn't save me. I saved you. He stopped pacing, looked at her, and for the first time since she'd met him, his composed mask cracked completely. Yes, he said quietly. You did. And every day since then, I've been trying to figure out how to deserve that. The silence between them stretched. Heavy. Electric. I can't live like this, Amara said, looking over my shoulder, wondering if today is the day someone uses me against you. Then don't. What? He stepped closer. Live with me. Let me protect you properly. Openly. And become your what? Your prisoner? Your secret? His eyes burned. My partner. My equal. He stopped. Drew a breath. My everything. Amara stared at him. Her heart was racing. Her mind was screaming warnings. But something deeper, something ancient and stubborn and true, was pulling her toward him. This is insane, she whispered. Yes. We barely know each other. I know enough. Your world is violence and death. And yours is healing and hope. His voice dropped. Perhaps that's exactly why we found each other. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small black box. Her breath stopped. I had this made the night we met, he said. I've been carrying it ever since, waiting for the right moment. He opened the box. Inside was the ring. Black platinum. A flawless diamond. Understated elegance that somehow perfectly reflected both of them. I'm not asking you to answer now, he said. I'm asking you to consider. To stay. To let me prove that I can be worthy of everything you are. Amara looked at the ring. At him. At the impossible future he was offering. If I say yes, she said slowly, it has to be on my terms. Name them. I keep working. I don't become some hidden trophy. Agreed. I meet your family. All of them. No secrets. Agreed. And when the time comes, when we go public, no one gets to treat me like I'm beneath you. No one. His eyes softened. They never could, he said, because you have always been above me. She didn't take the ring that night, but she didn't refuse it either. She stayed in his compound, in a private wing, with full autonomy. And slowly, carefully, they built something neither had expected. The following months, living with Kang Ji-tae was nothing like Amara expected. He was not demanding. He was not possessive. He was patient. He had breakfast prepared every morning but never forced her to join him. He left books he thought she might enjoy on her nightstand. He asked about her patience. Never pried, but remembered every name she mentioned. And slowly, she began to see the man behind the legend. She learned that he woke at 5 a.m. every day to practice calligraphy, a tradition his Korean grandmother had taught him. She learned that he spoke to his Nigerian father every Sunday, a 2-hour call filled with Yoruba and laughter and debates about football. She learned that his coldness in public was armor, and that beneath it was a man who had been hurt more than anyone knew. "Tell me about your mother," she asked one evening as they walked through his private garden. He was silent for a long time. "She was Korean," he finally said. "My father met her when he was a graduate student in Seoul. They were not supposed to fall in love." Why not? Because his family had plans for him. Political connections in Nigeria. A different kind of bride. He paused. But he chose her anyway. Gave up everything. Amara watched his face. The pain there was old, but still fresh. "She died when I was 14, he continued. "A car accident. Except it wasn't an accident. It was a message. From people who didn't like my father's growing influence." Ji-tae. "I built my empire on revenge," he said quietly. "Every company I acquired. Every enemy I destroyed. Every scar on my body. It was all for her." He turned to face Amara fully. "But you," he said. "You are the first thing I have ever wanted that had nothing to do with the past." She reached up, touched his jaw gently. "Then let me help you build a future instead." That night, she finally put on the ring. He noticed immediately, said nothing, but his eyes, those cold, guarded eyes, shone brighter than she had ever seen them. 18 months into their engagement, they had kept the engagement secret. For safety, for strategy, for time. Amara continued working at Seoul Royal Medical Center. No one knew her fiancé's name. No one knew she went home to a compound guarded by 50 men. No one knew that the ring she wore was worth more than the hospital director's annual salary. The discrimination continued. But somehow, it hurt less now. Because every night, she came home to someone who saw her completely. Ji-tae never asked her to quit. Never suggested she was wasting her time among people who didn't appreciate her. He understood that her work was her identity, her purpose, her proof that she had built something on her own. "I could have your hospital director removed," he offered once, casually, as if discussing dinner options. Amara laughed. "Please don't start assassinating my co-workers." His expression remained serious. "I was thinking more along the lines of aggressive stock acquisition and subsequent restructuring." "That's somehow worse." He almost smiled. 2 months before the hospital confrontation, the threats escalated. The Hwang syndicate had been quiet for over a year. Too quiet. Manager Yoon's reports grew increasingly concerning. New alliances were being formed. Old enemies were setting aside differences. All with one goal: destroying the Black Dragon. "They know about her," Manager Yoon reported during a late-night briefing. "The rumors have spread too far. It's only a matter of time before they make another attempt." Ji-tae's expression was stone. "Increase her security detail. She doesn't leave the hospital without escort. She'll notice. Let her notice." His eyes hardened. Better offended than dead. But Amara did more than notice. She confronted him directly. 6 bodyguards?" she demanded that evening. "I had to tell my supervisor they were patients' family members. They were necessary." "For what?" "I walk to work and back. That's my entire routine." He met her eyes. "An attempt was made on a judge yesterday. A man who had ruled against Hwang interests 3 years ago. They beat him in his own parking garage." Amara fell silent. "This is what I have been protecting you from," Ji-tae said quietly. "These are the people who want to hurt me. And the fastest way to hurt me is through you." She sat down slowly, the weight of it finally settling. "How does this end?" she asked. "It doesn't." Not unless I destroy them completely. And can you? He was silent for a long moment. There is a way, but it requires something I have been reluctant to do. What? His jaw tightened. Going public with us. Fully. Declaring before all of Seoul exactly who you are to me. How does that help? Because currently, they see you as a secret weakness. Something to exploit quietly. But if you stand beside me openly, as my fiancé, as my future wife, you become something else entirely. What? He looked at her with absolute seriousness. Protected by every alliance I have, every favor I'm owed, every person who fears me. His voice dropped. Untouchable. Amara processed this. So, you want to use our engagement as a political statement?
No.
He reached for her hands. I want to show the world what you already know. That you are mine. That I am yours. That nothing, not syndicates, not empires, not death itself, will separate us. He paused. I should have done this long ago. I was afraid that going public would paint a bigger target on you. But I was wrong. Secrecy has only made you more vulnerable. Amara looked at their intertwined hands. His, scarred and tattooed. Hers, still healing from yesterday's double shift. Both carrying weight the world didn't see. When? She asked. I was thinking this week. Unless. Do it tomorrow. His eyes widened slightly. I'm tired of hiding, Amara said firmly. I'm tired of people treating me like I'm nothing while I go home to someone who treats me like everything. Let them see. Let them all see. For a moment, Jitae simply stared at her. Then he lifted her hand, kissed her ring, and said, Tomorrow it is. But tomorrow never came. Because the next morning, everything changed. The morning of the hospital confrontation, Amara woke to an empty bed. Jitae's side was cold. He had been gone for hours. A note waited on the pillow. Emergency meeting with the Alliance Council. Cannot reschedule. The announcement will happen today. My men will bring you to me at noon. Wait for me.
Jay.
She got ready for work as usual, kissed the note before tucking it into her pocket, and left for another shift at Seoul Royal Medical Center. She didn't know that Jitae's emergency meeting was actually a trap, that the Hwang Syndicate had finally made their move, that at this very moment, the man she loved was fighting for his life across the city. But manager, you knew. When the coded message arrived on his phone, 3 words that made his blood run cold, he immediately mobilized. Every car, every man, every resource. Get her out of that hospital, he ordered.
Now.
The convoy of 10 SUVs was never supposed to go to the medical center. It was supposed to take Amara to a safe house. But by the time the vehicles arrived, Jitae had already won his battle, had already defeated the ambush, had already left 3 of Hwang's best lieutenants broken on a warehouse floor, and had already redirected every vehicle to one location. If I must reveal us to the world, he thought as blood dried on his knuckles, it will not be through a press release. It will be through action. Let them see exactly who protects her. He cleaned himself in the back of the lead SUV, changed into a fresh suit, adjusted his collar to reveal just enough of the dragon tattoo, and ordered his driver to take him to Seoul Royal Medical Center. When those 10 black vehicles rolled into the hospital compound, when he stepped out onto the pavement, when he walked through those glass doors with the authority of a man who owned nations, he wasn't just reclaiming his fiancée. He was sending a message to everyone who had ever underestimated her, to everyone who had mocked her, to every syndicate leader who thought she was his weakness. This woman is under my protection. This woman will be my wife. And anyone who touches her will answer to the Black Dragon himself. The moment he kissed her ring in front of everyone, the moment he said those words, my fiancé has been waiting for me, the underground world of Seoul received the message loud and clear. The Hwang Syndicate's attempted ambush had failed. Their target remained untouchable. And the Black Dragon had just announced his most guarded secret to the world. Immediately following their departure from the hospital, the SUV was silent as it pulled away from Seoul Royal Medical Center. Amara sat next to Jitae, her hand still held in his. His grip was gentle but unbreakable. She noticed the cut on his jawline, the the barely visible bruise forming near his temple. The way he held his left shoulder slightly different than usual. "What happened?" she asked quietly. "A disagreement. You're hurt." "I've been hurt worse." "Jitae." He turned to face her. In the privacy of the tinted vehicle, away from watching eyes, his composure softened. "The Hwang Syndicate attempted an ambush this morning," he said. "They thought they could catch me before I reached the Alliance Council. And they were wrong." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "But when I realized you were still at the hospital, unprotected for those critical hours,
He stopped.
swallowed.
"I have never felt fear like that."
Not even during the ambush itself. Amara lifted her free hand, touched the cut on his jaw gently. "You came for me anyway," she said. "Even injured. Even exposed. I will always come for you." The words hung between them. Simple. Absolute. Unbreakable. The following 48 hours. Seoul erupted. The footage spread across social media within hours. Someone had filmed the convoy arriving. Someone else had captured the moment Jitae kissed Amara's ring. The clips were everywhere. Kang Jae-tae engaged to foreign nurse. Black Dragon's secret fiancé revealed. Who is Amara Okafor? The tabloids went insane. Entertainment reporters stalked the hospital. Business journalists analyzed the strategic implications. Social commentators debated the appropriateness of such a union. And through it all, the couple remained silent. No interviews, no press releases, no public appearances, just silence. It drove everyone mad. Inside the Atakunnel compound, Amara stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows of Jitae's private study, watching the city lights twinkle below. Behind her, he reviewed security reports with Manager Yoon. Their voices were low, businesslike, but she could hear the tension. "The Hwang response?" Jitae asked. "Nothing direct, but their allies are pulling back. 3 investment groups withdrew partnership offers this morning." Fear or strategy? Both. They're realizing that attacking you now means attacking her. And attacking her means facing unified retaliation from every syndicate you've ever aided. Jitae's expression remained neutral, but Amara heard the satisfaction beneath his words.
"Good.
Make sure that message continues to spread." Manager Yoon bowed and departed. Jitae approached Amara, stood behind her, close enough that she could feel his warmth, but not quite touching. "Regrets?" he asked. "None. The hospital has been trying to contact you. Human Resources. The director. 3 department heads." "I know. You don't have to go back." She turned to face him.
"Yes.
"I do." His brow furrowed slightly. "Not because I need the job," she clarified. "Because they need to see me walk back in, with my head high, as myself. Not as your fiancé, not as a scandal, as Amara Okafor, the nurse who earned her place there through skill and dedication." Understanding dawned in his eyes. "You want to face them. I want to show them that their opinions never changed who I am. Their mockery never diminished me. And their sudden respect, now that they know who I'm marrying, means absolutely nothing compared to the respect I earn myself." A rare emotion crossed Jitae's face.
Pride.
Deep, overwhelming pride. "Then you will face them," he said. "And I will make sure you have everything you need. I don't need bodyguards in the examination rooms." "I was thinking more along the lines of a new wing." Jitae. "The Amara Okafor International Nursing Excellence Center. It has a nice ring to it." "You're impossible." He stepped closer, cupped her face in his hands. "I am," he agreed. "But I'm also yours." And finally, for the first time since they'd left the hospital, she smiled. 1 week later, Amara returned to work. Not in hiding, not in shame, but with her head high and her ring gleaming on her finger. The hospital had transformed in her absence. Everyone smiled at her now. Everyone greeted her respectfully. Everyone suddenly remembered her name, her achievements, her exceptional patient outcomes. It would have been pathetic if it wasn't so predictable. The wealthy woman who had mocked her ring attempted an apology. "Miss Okafor, Amara, I hope you understand, I meant no offense." "Mrs. Park." Amara's voice was calm but firm. I remember exactly what you meant. As does everyone in that waiting room that day. What's changed isn't me. What's changed is what you now stand to lose. The woman's face drained of color. I'm late for rounds. Please excuse me. Amara walked away without looking back. And somewhere in Seoul, watching through a security feed he definitely shouldn't have access to, Kang Ji-tae smiled. 2 weeks later, the text message arrived while Amara was on her lunch break. My father arrives tomorrow. He insists on meeting you before the wedding invitations go out. Dinner at the compound. 7 p.m. Don't be nervous. I'm nervous enough for both of us. Amara stared at the message, then typed back. The Adekunle Sr.? Nigerian business mogul? Friend of presidents? That father? The only one I have. What do I wear? Yourself. That's what he'll want to see. A pause. Then, also, he mentioned bringing palm wine and suya. He says no proper engagement happens without them. Despite everything, Amara laughed. Chief Emmanuel Adekunle arrived in Seoul with the subtlety of a hurricane. He was everything Ji-tae was not.
Loud. Warm.
Effusive. His laughter filled rooms. His stories lasted hours. His hugs could crush ribs. But his eyes, when they met Amara's for the first time, held the same piercing intelligence as his son's. So, he said, clasping her hands between his massive palms. You are the woman who saved my boy's life. I was just doing my job, sir.
Chief. Call me Chief.
Or Papa if you're feeling brave. He grinned. And don't just doing your job me. I've heard the full story. You stood up to his men, refused to let him die, demanded that they wait. His voice softened. Do you know how many people have ever said no to my son? I imagine not many. You imagine correctly. He squeezed her hands. That's how I knew you were special. Not because you saved him, but because you were willing to fight for him when fighting was the hardest choice. Amara felt tears prick her eyes, but she held them back. He's not easy, Chief Adekunle continued. Cold on the surface. Too much of his mother in him. God rest her soul. She was quiet like that too. Deep water, still running. He glanced at Ji-tae, who stood silently nearby. But underneath? Loyal to the bone. Protective to a fault. And capable of love so intense it frightens him. He looked back at Amara. Can you handle that? Truly. I'm still learning, she admitted. But yes, I believe I can. Chief Adekunle studied her for a long moment. Then he smiled, a smile so warm it transformed his entire face. Good, he said. Then let's eat. I didn't fly 12 hours to have serious conversations on an empty stomach. The dinner lasted 4 hours. Palm wine flowed. Suya was consumed in heroic quantities. Stories were shared, of Ji-tae's childhood mischief, of Amara's nursing school struggles, of Chief Adekunle's courtship of Ji-tae's mother decades ago. She told me no 17 times, the chief reminisced. 17. Her father was a traditional man. Didn't want his daughter marrying an African. Said I would take her away from Korea forever. What changed his mind? I learned Korean. Perfect Korean. Then I showed up at his office and gave a presentation on why his daughter should marry me, with slides, and charts, and projected financial outcomes. Even Ji-tae laughed at that. A real laugh. Something Amara had rarely heard. She was worth it, Chief Adekunle said, his voice quieting. Every rejection, every obstacle, every person who said we didn't belong together. She was worth all of it. He looked at Amara with knowing eyes. And you will be worth it too. For my son. I can already see it. Amara reached under the table, found Ji-tae's hand, squeezed it tight. He squeezed back. 3 days later, the video call was arranged for 10 p.m. Seoul time, mid-morning in Lagos. Amara sat nervously before the camera, her family filling the screen. Her father, stern-faced but kind-eyed. Her mother, already crying before the call began. Her 3 sisters, who had been texting her constantly since the news broke. Her grandmother, who sat in the corner with an expression that could either mean approval or disapproval. It was impossible to tell. So, Her father said after the introductions were complete. This man, this Kong Jitae, he is treating you well? Yes, Papa. He respects your work, your independence. Yes. And his business dealings, there are rumors, Amara. Rumors about the nature of his empire. Amara took a breath. She had prepared for this question. His business has many layers, she said carefully. Some of them are not traditional. But he has never asked me to be part of anything illegal. He has never asked me to compromise my values. And he protects me without trying to control me. Her father was silent. Her mother was still crying. Her grandmother leaned forward. Does he cook? The old woman asked. Amara blinked. I don't think so. Then he better be rich. Mama, Amara's mother exclaimed.
What?
A man who cannot cook must provide. That is basic economics. Despite the tension, everyone laughed. Bring him to Nigeria, her father finally said. Before the wedding, I want to look him in the eye, shake his hand, see for myself what kind of man has captured my daughter's heart. I will, Papa. And Amara? Yes. His expression softened. I am proud of you, not because of who you're marrying, but because of who you have become. You went to a strange country alone. You built a career against impossible odds. And you remained yourself through all of it. Amara's eyes filled with tears. That is your mother in you, he continued. That strength, that resilience. And whoever you choose to marry should feel privileged to be standing beside such a woman. The call lasted another hour. By the end, even her grandmother had given tentative approval. He has good shoulders, she observed of Jitae's photos. Good for carrying things. This is important in a husband. When the screen finally went dark, Amara sat in the silence of her room. Overwhelmed, grateful,
Loved.
The door opened quietly. Jitae entered. He had been waiting outside the entire time, giving her privacy. How did it go? My grandmother approves of your shoulders. Should I be concerned? Probably. He sat beside her, pulled her close. We'll go to Nigeria next month, he said. I'll meet your father. Answer his questions. Prove myself worthy. You don't have to prove anything. Yes, I do. His voice was serious. He raised the woman I love. The least I can do is look him in the eye and thank him. Amara leaned into his chest, felt his heartbeat beneath her ear. I love you, she whispered. It was the first time she had said it aloud.
He stilled.
His arms tightened around her. I know, he said softly. I have known for a long time. Then even softer. I love you too. More than I ever believed possible. More than I ever intended to love anyone. They stayed like that for a long time. Two people from different worlds. Building something neither had expected. And stronger for it. 3 weeks later, the wedding preparations had begun. The venue, a private estate in the countryside, overlooking the Han River. The guest list, 300 of the most powerful people in Asia and Africa. The theme, a fusion of Korean elegance and Nigerian vibrancy. Amara was reviewing fabric samples with Jitae's event coordinator when the alert came. Her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Enjoy your happiness while it lasts. Dragons can bleed too. Her blood ran cold. Within an hour, Jitae had traced the message to a burner phone purchased in Busan. Within 2 hours, his intelligence network had identified the buyer. Within 3 hours, he had a name. Kim Soo-yeon, daughter of the late Kim Jae-woo, former leader of the Hwang Syndicate. The man Jitae had destroyed 5 years ago during his rise to power. She blames me for her father's death, Jitae explained, his voice flat. She's been rebuilding his organization in secret, using his old connections, recruiting his former allies. And now she's coming after me to hurt you. It appears so. Amara processed this. The threat was real. The danger was personal. And there was no easy solution. What do we do? She asked. Jitae's expression was steel. We draw her out. On our terms. Before she can strike on hers.
How?
He paused. Looked at her with something approaching hesitation. The wedding. We announce the date publicly. Make it impossible for her to attack without exposing herself. You want to use our wedding as bait? I want to use our wedding as a trap. His jaw tightened. She thinks I'm vulnerable because I love you. She thinks love makes me weak. We prove her wrong. Together. Amara was silent for a long moment. Then, if we do this, I'm involved in planning. Every step. I won't be protected from the truth while you face danger alone. That's not. Those are my conditions. Take them or find another way. Jitae studied her. Her set jaw. Her unwavering eyes. The same steel she had shown the night they met. Agreed, he finally said. We do this together. The weeks that followed, planning a wedding while preparing for war was complicated. Morning meetings with caterers were followed by afternoon briefings on security protocols. Flower arrangements were discussed alongside ammunition inventories. Guest seating charts were finalized between intelligence reports on Kim Soo-yeon's movements. Through it all, Amara and Jitae grew closer, not just as partners, but as co-conspirators. As equals facing a common enemy. Manager Yoon had been skeptical at first. With respect, Chairman, Miss Okafor has no training in. Miss Okafor has survived 8 years in an environment that consistently tried to break her. Jitae interrupted. She has instincts, intelligence, and perspective that none of us possess. She stays. And she did. She reviewed threat assessments with analytical precision. She suggested security adjustments that the team had overlooked. She even identified a mole in Jitae's household staff, a new gardener whose background check had been suspiciously too perfect. How did you know? Manager Yoon asked after the man was quietly removed. He avoided eye contact with me, but watched the main house constantly, Amara said. In my hospital, we call that observation pattern guilty conscience. Someone who doesn't belong but is trying to remember everything they see. From that moment on, Manager Yoon never questioned her presence again. 2 weeks before the wedding, Kim Soo-yeon made her first direct move. A package arrived at Amara's hospital, addressed to her personally. Inside was a traditional Korean funeral portrait, but with Amara's face photoshopped onto it. And a note. Some marriages end before they begin. The hospital was evacuated. The package was analyzed. No explosives. No toxins. Just psychological warfare. That night, Amara sat with Jitae in his study. Her hands weren't shaking. She wouldn't allow them to, but her voice was quieter than usual. She wants me afraid. Yes. Is that going to work? Jitae looked at her. You tell me. Amara was silent for a moment. Then she reached for the funeral portrait, still sealed in evidence bags, and looked at it directly. At her own face, distorted into death. At the threat it represented. Then she set it aside. Calmly. Deliberately. No, she said. It's not. Something shifted in Jitae's expression. Respect deepened into something more. Then we continue as planned, he said. And we let her think she's winning until the moment we prove she's already lost. 1 week before the wedding, the final preparations were underway. The venue had been transformed. Traditional Korean pavilions draped in white silk. Nigerian fabric accents in rich greens and golds. Flowers from both countries arranged in impossible harmony. The security was invisible but overwhelming. Snipers on every hillside. Plainclothes guards among the catering staff. Drones disguised as wedding decorations. And in a sealed room beneath the main pavilion, a trap. Intelligence had confirmed that Kim Soo-yeon planned to strike during the ceremony itself. Maximum humiliation. Maximum witnesses. Maximum damage to Jitae's reputation. What she didn't know was that they were expecting her. What she didn't know was that every escape route had already been compromised. What she didn't know was that the woman she viewed as a weakness was actually the key to her defeat. The night before the wedding, Amara stood alone on the balcony of the compound. The city lights spread out below her. Tomorrow, everything would change. Jitae found her there. He joined her silently. For a long moment, neither spoke. Nervous, he finally asked. About the wedding or the assassination attempt?
Either.
Both. She considered the question honestly. No, she realized. I'm not nervous. I'm ready. He moved closer. Stood behind her. Wrapped his arms around her waist. When this is over, he said quietly, when we've dealt with Kim Soo-yeon and all her allies, I want to take you somewhere. Where? Anywhere. Everywhere. I want to show you the world I've built. Not the dangerous parts. The beautiful parts. The parts I've never shared with anyone. She leaned back against his chest. I'd like that. Silence settled between them. Comfortable. Intimate. I never believed in this, Jitae said quietly.
Marriage. Partnership. Love.
I watched my father lose my mother, and I decided that caring for anyone was a weakness I couldn't afford. And now, he turned her gently to face him. Now I understand that he wasn't weak for loving her. He was brave. Loving someone despite knowing you could lose them, that's the hardest kind of courage. His hands cupped her face. You taught me that. You teach me that every day. She rose on her toes, pressed her lips to his. Soft at first, then deeper. When they finally parted, her forehead rested against his. Tomorrow, she whispered. Tomorrow, he agreed. Whatever happens. She met his eyes. I choose you. His breath caught. And I choose you, he replied. Yesterday.
Today.
Tomorrow. For the rest of whatever life I have. They stayed on that balcony until dawn, watching the city wake up, watching their last night of secrecy end, watching the beginning of everything they had been building toward. Tomorrow, they would face an enemy who wanted them dead. Tomorrow, they would prove that love was not a weakness. Tomorrow, they would show the world exactly who they were. But tonight, they simply held each other. And that was enough. The wedding day has arrived. Kim Soo-yeon's attack is imminent. The trap is set. But will it work? What sacrifices will be required? Will Amara and Jitae survive to say their vows? And what dark secret from Jitae's past is about to resurface? A secret that could destroy everything they've built. Dawn broke over Seoul like a promise. The sky was the color of rose gold and deep violet. Clouds stretched across the horizon like brushstrokes on silk. The estate grounds were still and breathtaking. Dew on the grass, mist rising from the Han River below, flowers opening their petals to greet the morning. It was, without question, the most beautiful day of Amara Okafor's life. It was also the most dangerous. She sat before the vanity mirror in the bridal suite, watching the makeup artist's hands move with practiced precision across her face. Her mother stood behind her, tears streaming freely, making no effort to stop them. Her sisters clustered nearby, the eldest adjusting Amara's headpiece, the youngest clutching her phone, the middle one offering unsolicited opinions about everything. Her grandmother sat in the corner chair, perfectly still, watching with eyes that had seen wars, famines, independence, loss, and joy, and had survived all of it. You look like your grandmother, Amara's mother whispered. On her wedding day, the same strength in your eyes, the same light. Mama, don't make me cry. I just finished the makeup. You think I care about makeup? My baby is getting married today. Fresh tears. More protests. Her youngest sister taking rapid-fire photographs. Amara closed her eyes for a moment. Breathed. Underneath the warmth and noise of family love, she was doing something else. She was listening. The way she always had, trained by years of hospital shifts to detect when something was wrong beneath the surface calm. And right now, every instinct she possessed was screaming. Today would not be simple. Her grandmother's voice cut through the noise. Everyone, leave us. No one argued with the grandmother. The makeup artist, the sisters, even Amara's mother, all filed out quietly. The door closed. Silence descended. Amara opened her eyes and met her grandmother's gaze in the mirror. The old woman rose slowly from her chair and approached. Her hands, wrinkled, strong, carrying 70 years of life, came to rest on Amara's shoulders. You are afraid, the grandmother said.
No, Grandma, I'm not.
Don't lie to old people. We can smell lies. It's a gift that comes with a gray hair. Despite everything, Amara smiled. I'm alert, she corrected carefully. There may be trouble today. We've prepared for it. But you are afraid that your preparations will not be enough. Silence. Yes. Her grandmother's hands tightened gently on her shoulders. "When your grandfather and I married," she began, her voice taking on the rhythmic quality of stories passed down through generations, "there was also danger. Political violence in the region. Roads were unsafe. 2 wedding guests were threatened on their journey. A man fired a warning shot near the church." Amara turned to look at her. "You never told me this." "There are many things I have not told you, but this one is relevant today." She held Amara's gaze steadily. "Your grandfather never stopped walking toward that altar. Not for bullets. Not for threats. Not for fear. Because he understood something that young people forget." "What?" Her grandmother smiled, slow and deep, like sunrise. "Love is not what happens after the danger passes. Love is what keeps you walking through it." Amara's eyes filled. She blinked rapidly. "Don't you dare ruin that makeup," her grandmother warned. "I did not fly 14 hours to watch you cry mascara down your face." A laugh escaped Amara. Pure and real. The old woman kissed the top of her head. "Go marry your dragon," she whispered. "And God help anyone who tries to stand in your way." Across the estate, in the groom's suite, Kang Ji-tae stood motionless before the full-length mirror. He wore a traditional Korean hanbok in deep black and dark navy, but the silhouette had been redesigned by a master tailor to honor both of his heritages. The collar was threaded with Nigerian goldwork patterns. The ceremonial belt carried his syndicate's hidden emblem alongside his father's family crest. His dragon tattoo curled beneath the high collar, visible at the neck, at the wrist, at the knuckles of his right hand. He had stopped hiding what he was. Manager Yoon stood at his side, tablet in hand. "Security reports are normal. All positions confirmed. The eastern perimeter is..." "Yoon." "Sir?" Ji-tae met his oldest ally's eyes in the mirror. "Is she safe?" Yoon paused.
Yes.
As of 10 minutes ago, her mother's security detail reported all clear. Ji-tae exhaled, a barely visible relaxation of tension in his jaw. Chief Adekunle entered then, resplendent in full Nigerian ceremonial regalia, flowing agbada in rich burgundy and gold, traditional cap set at a commanding angle. He stopped when he saw his son. His face shifted through several emotions at once.
Pride, grief, love, joy.
"Your mother would have designed that herself," he said softly. "You know that. She had a talent for this, blending the two worlds, making them beautiful together." Ji-tae's jaw tightened. "I know. She would have adored Amara. I know that too." Chief Adekunle crossed the room and placed both hands on his son's shoulders. The gesture was the same one he had used when Ji-tae was a frightened 14-year-old learning his mother was gone. Still powerful. Still grounding. Still saying everything words couldn't. "You are not just marrying today," the chief said. "You are ending something. The part of yourself that believed you didn't deserve love. That believed cold was safer than warm. That believed armor was more reliable than heart." Ji-tae said nothing, but his father saw. "I raised you to be a warrior," the chief continued. "And you became one. The finest I have ever seen. But warriors who cannot lay down their weapons in the presence of love." He paused. "They die fighting battles that ended years ago." Silence. Ji-tae turned to face his father fully. "She terrifies me," he admitted quietly. "More than any enemy I've faced. Because losing her would be..."
He stopped.
Unable to finish. His father squeezed his shoulders. "That is how you know it's real," the chief said simply. "The things worth having always cost us the most." A knock at the door. Manager Yoon answered it. A junior security officer spoke rapidly in hushed tones. Yoon's expression didn't change, but his eyes did. He approached Ji-tae. "Sir." "There's been a development." Ji-tae turned. His posture shifted. Every trace of vulnerability gone. The Black Dragon returned.
"Tell me."
Kim Soo-yeon was spotted arriving in Seoul 3 hours ago. "She's not coming from Busan, as we expected. She flew in from Tokyo last night under a false identity." Yoon paused. "She's not alone. She brought 8 of Hwang's former lieutenants. And sir..." He hesitated. "One of our inner circle provided her with the estate's layout." The silence that followed was absolute. Jitae's expression didn't change. His eyes, however, became something entirely cold. Who? Not a question. A command. We believe it's Min Sung-jun, your head of external communications. He's been feeding information for at least 3 months. Min Sung-jun, a man Jitae had trusted for 6 years. A man who had attended every strategy meeting, who knew every detail, who had access to everything. Jitae was silent for 4 seconds. Isolate him. Quietly. Don't let him know he's been identified. And adjust the security formation. Use the secondary protocol we established last week. The one he doesn't have access to. Yes, sir. And Yoon. Sir? Jitae looked directly at his most loyal ally. Make sure she has no idea any of this is happening. Today is her day. Whatever comes, she meets me at that altar with a smile on her face. Yoon bowed deeply. Understood, Chairman. Jitae turned back to the mirror, straightened his collar, touched the dragon tattoo at his neck briefly. Not for decoration. Earned. Every sacrifice. Every battle. Every person he couldn't save. Today, he refused to add one more name to that list. 300 guests filled the estate grounds. The ceremony space was breathtaking, a fusion of a traditional Korean Madong courtyard and a Nigerian Aso-ebi celebration, unified by an aesthetic that felt entirely original. White silk draped between ancient trees. Gold and green attire fabric panels caught the morning breeze. A bridge of fresh peonies, white for honor, red for love, stretched between the entrance archway and the altar itself. Musicians played a hybrid score, Korean traditional gaegeum strings woven with the deep resonance of Yoruba dundun drums. The sound was extraordinary, like 2 worlds learning each other's language. The guests were an equally extraordinary collection. Corporate chairmen, government ministers, syndicate leaders who had dressed up their most respectable faces for the occasion, Nigerian chieftains and their wives, Korean entertainment figures, international business allies, doctors from Seoul Royal Medical Center, invited personally by Amara because she forgave easily, even when she didn't forget. And, in the front row, Chief Adekunle, magnificent in his regalia. Amara's parents, her mother already weeping decorously into a handkerchief. Her sisters, resplendent in coordinated aso-ebi. Her grandmother, wearing the expression of a general reviewing troops before battle. Jitae stood at the altar.
Still. Composed.
A mountain that all the wind in the world couldn't move. But when the music shifted, when the gaegeum notes began to climb and the dundun drums began to pulse together in the bridal announcement, something moved across his face. The guests turned, and Amara appeared. She walked alone at first, a choice she had made deliberately, because she had arrived in Korea alone. She had built her life in Korea alone. And when she walked this aisle, she wanted the world to see that clearly. A woman who had carried herself through every storm. Her gown was extraordinary. A master collaboration between a Korean hanbok designer and a Nigerian aso-oak weaving house. The silhouette was modern and flowing, deep ivory silk with an overlay of handwoven gold thread in Yoruba geometric patterns. The neckline and sleeves were edged in Korean pojagi patchwork that shimmered like stained glass. She wore her hair natural, a crown of dark coils adorned with tiny white blossoms. Her grandmother's gold earrings hung at her ears. Her engagement ring blazed on her finger. She was radiant. She was herself. Completely, unapologetically, magnificently herself. At the midpoint of the aisle, her father joined her. He took her arm without a word. His jaw was working hard against emotion. "Papa," she whispered. "Don't talk," he whispered back.
If you talk, I'll cry.
And I am not crying in front of all these people. She squeezed his arm. He patted her hand. Together, they walked to the altar. Jitae watched her the entire way. He had stood unmoved through 3 assassination attempts, 2 hostile corporate takeovers, and more physical confrontations than he could accurately count. But watching Amara Okafor walk toward him, he had to consciously steady his breathing. Her father placed her hand in Jitae's. The old man looked directly into the younger man's eyes. The look lasted exactly 3 seconds. It carried an entire universe of meaning. She is the best thing I have ever helped create. Honor her. Or answer to me. Jitae held that gaze steadily. His response needed no words either. I know. I will. On my life. Her father stepped back, and Amara and Jitae stood together, face to face, before 300 witnesses, before 2 continents, before everything that had tried to keep them apart. The officiant began. It happened at the moment of vows. The estate's eastern garden, supposedly sealed off for the ceremony, erupted in movement. 12 figures in black tactical gear appeared from positions that shouldn't have been accessible, but they had the original layout. The one Min Sung-joon had provided. And for exactly 4 seconds, it appeared their plan was working. For seconds, that was as far as they got. Because Jitae had anticipated the eastern approach. Because the secondary protocol had redirected 20 of his best men to that exact perimeter. Because every guard position the traitor had reported was already vacated. And filled with people Kim Soo-yeon was not expecting. The confrontation was over before most of the wedding guests registered the distant commotion. 10 of the 12 figures were subdued efficiently. The remaining 2 fled toward the river. They didn't make it far. But Kim Soo-yeon herself was nowhere among them. Manager Yoon's voice came through the hidden earpiece Jitae wore beneath his ceremonial collar. The 12 are down. But Soo-yeon isn't with them. She sent proxies. Repeat, the primary target is not on the eastern perimeter. Jitae's hands tightened almost imperceptibly around Amara's. She felt it. Her eyes found his.
She saw the change.
He held her gaze. Barely shook his head. Not now. Stay with me. She took a slow breath.
And stayed.
Yoon's voice again. Checking the interior. Security sweep in progress. A pause.
Sir.
She's inside the estate. She was in the guest list, posing as the wife of one of the external investment partners. She's been here since the gates opened. Jitae's jaw tightened. Inside. She had been inside the entire time. Not in the garden. Not attacking from the outside. Sitting among the guests. Watching. Waiting. We've identified her position. She's moving toward the ceremony space from the western pathway. She's armed. She's not alone. 2 bodyguards flanking. The officiant continued reading. The Gaegeum music floated softly. 300 people heard nothing but love. Jitae made a calculation in 3 seconds. If he signaled a full evacuation, the panic could injure guests. If he signaled his men to converge now, Soo-yeon would know she'd been exposed and fire immediately. If he did nothing, she would appear in the ceremony space in less than 90 seconds. There was one option remaining. He hated it, but it was the only one. He leaned toward Amara, brought his lips close to her ear, spoke beneath the music. His voice was absolutely calm. There's a woman coming from the western path. She intends to disrupt. In approximately 60 seconds, I need you to do something that will save every person in this space. Amara didn't flinch, didn't look around, didn't break character. Tell me, she breathed. When you see her enter the space, I need you to approach her directly. Alone. No security. No guards.
Just you.
Amara's eyes widened fractionally. She won't fire at you. Jitae continued quietly. You're the symbol of my weakness. That's what she believes. But the moment she sees you walking toward her without fear, without backup, it will freeze her. It will shatter every assumption she has built her plan on. And it will give my men the seconds they need.
A pause.
Or, he added, we can. I'll do it, Amara whispered. Amara. You said I was part of this. All of it. You said we face it together. His expression fractured, just for a moment. I promised I'd protect you. And I promised I'd walk beside you. Not behind you. She met his eyes with absolute clarity. Trust me. 1 second passed. My men will be in position the moment you make contact. The instant there is any threat to you. I know. If anything happens to you, Nothing is going to happen to me, Amara said firmly. Because we prepared. Because we're ready. Because love is not what happens after the danger passes. Jitae stared at her. Where did you hear that? My grandmother. She's very wise. You should listen to her more. Despite everything, the armed woman approaching, the controlled chaos, the impossible stakes, something almost like a smile crossed his lips. After today, he murmured, I intend to listen to her about everything. The officiant reached the vow exchange. 30 seconds remaining. And then Kim Soo-yeon stepped into the ceremony space. She was striking in the way that deep hatred sometimes manifests as cold beauty. Dark hair, sharp features, eyes that held the flat intensity of someone who had decided to burn everything down and accepted the consequences. She wore a guest's attire, elegant, unremarkable. But one hand moved toward the concealed weapon beneath her silk shawl. Her 2 bodyguards flanked her at the space's edge. Several guests nearest to her noticed. Confusion. A murmur. The first edge of panic. And then Amara Okafor stepped away from the altar. 300 people fell silent. She walked toward Kim Soo-yeon. Alone. Steady. Her wedding dress flowing behind her like a declaration. Her engagement ring catching the light with every step. Her eyes never leaving Soo-yeon's face. The approach was so unexpected, so counterintuitive to everything Soo-yeon had planned, that the woman stopped. Her hand stilled beneath the shawl. Amara stopped 3 feet away. Close enough for conversation. Far enough for Jitae's men to act. She spoke quietly. Clearly. Not for the crowd. Just for the woman in front of her. I know who you are. I know who your father was. I know you've spent years building this moment, convincing yourself it would bring you peace. Soo-yeon's jaw tightened. You don't know anything about. I know grief, Amara said simply. I know what it looks like when it becomes something else. When it stops being pain and starts being purpose. When you stop crying and start planning. Silence. I'm not afraid of you, Amara continued. But I am sorry. For what you lost. For whatever drove you here today. Because whoever your father was, whatever he did, he was still your father. And loving someone who has done terrible things doesn't make you terrible. Soo-yeon's hand trembled. Don't, she said, her voice cracking for just a moment. Don't stand there and feel sorry for me. Don't. I'm not feeling sorry for you. I'm telling you the truth. Amara's voice was the same voice she used with frightened patients in the ICU. Calm. Human. Unafraid. This path doesn't end where you think it does. It ends with everyone losing everything. Including you. A long second. Another. Soo-yeon's eyes drifted past Amara. To Jitae. Who stood at the altar. Still. Watching. Not advancing. Not retreating. Trusting his fiancé completely. The act of trust was more threatening than any weapon. Because it proved something Soo-yeon had built her entire plan around disproving. That Amara Okafor was not his weakness. She was his strength. And that meant the plan was already over. Soo-yeon's hand withdrew from beneath her shawl. Empty. The 2 bodyguards were taken from behind before they could react. Efficiently. Silently. Professional restraint applied before any threat could escalate. 3 security officers materialized beside Soo-yeon. She didn't resist. The fight had left her. As they moved her toward the estate's rear exit, she looked back at Amara one final time. Something complicated crossed her face. Not defeat, not gratitude, but something in between. Something that might, years from now, become understanding. Amara watched her go, then turned back to the altar. 300 people stared at her in complete silence. She walked back to Jitae. Her steps as measured and graceful as they had been when she first entered. When she reached him, he took both her hands. His eyes asked the question, Are you all right? Her eyes answered, Yes. Always. He lifted her hands to his lips, kissed her knuckles, her ring, her strength. Then he looked at the officiant. Shall we continue? The officiant, to his eternal credit, simply cleared his throat and resumed. As if armed confrontations were a regular feature of Korean-Nigerian weddings. Perhaps in certain circles they were. The vow exchange was conducted in 3 languages. Korean, Yoruba, and English, the bridge between their worlds. Jitae spoke first. His voice carried across the silent space. Measured. Deep. Every word chosen with the precision of a man who never spoke unless he meant it absolutely. Amara. He held her gaze. I spent the first 30 years of my life believing that control was safety, that distance was wisdom, that the only way to protect something precious was to never admit it mattered. He paused. You destroyed that belief the moment you refused to let me die. Not because you knew me, not because you had any reason to fight for my life, but because you are the kind of person who cannot walk past suffering without responding. A tear broke free from Amara's eye. She didn't stop it. I have spent the years since then trying to deserve what you gave me that night. I don't know if I have succeeded. I only know that I will spend every remaining day of my life trying. He drew a slow breath. I vow to protect you, not by keeping you small or hidden or safe behind walls I've built, but by standing beside you, openly,
Proudly.
without apology. His voice dropped. I vow to see you clearly, always. When the world is blind, when success is loud, when everything conspires to make you feel invisible, I will always see you. I vow to choose you, every day, not because I have to, but because choosing you is the most intelligent decision I have ever made. In Korean, in Yoruba, in every language the world speaks, my answer is the same. Sarangi. Mo-fe-e. I love you. Silence. Then a sound moved through the crowd. Not applause. Not gasps. Just breath. 300 people releasing a collective breath they hadn't realized they were holding. The officiant turned to Amara. She took a moment, gathered herself, and spoke. Jite. Her voice was warm and clear, and entirely her. When I was a little girl in Lagos, my grandmother used to say that the heart knows what the eyes cannot see. I didn't understand that for a long time. I understood it the night a stranger looked at me, exhausted, bleeding, afraid, and trusted me with his life. She smiled slightly. I don't think that was coincidence. I think that was invitation. An invitation into a life I never imagined for myself. Into love I wasn't sure I deserved. Her hands tightened around his. I vow to be honest with you, even when honesty is difficult, even when silence would be easier, because you deserve the truth of me, all of it, not just the parts that are easy to hold. I vow to remain myself, not because I won't grow or change, but because the woman you fell in love with was fully formed before she met you.
And she intends to stay that way. Whole.
Unborrowed. Mine. Her voice softened. And I vow to love you in a way that makes you feel safe enough to lay down your armor. Not all at once. I know that's not how you work.
But piece by piece.
Day by day. Until the day comes when you look in the mirror and see someone worthy of everything you've built. She paused. Because I already see that person. I have since the beginning. Jite's jaw worked. The only sign, the only visible sign in all the controlled stillness of him, that her words had reached somewhere no enemy ever had. In Yoruba, in Korean, in every language love speaks, mafia. Sarangi. I love you. And I choose you. The rings were exchanged. Traditional Korean baekjeolju ceremonial wine was shared. Nigerian kola nut was broken and blessed by Chief AfroKorean. Two cultures, honoring each other without diminishing each other. Two worlds, made larger by their meeting. By the power vested in me, the officiant said, and by the witness of every person standing here today.
He paused.
Smiled. You may finally kiss your bride. Jite cupped Amara's face in both hands. His eyes searched hers for one last moment. Asking the question he would ask for the rest of their lives. Still here? Still choosing me? Her eyes answered the way they always would. Always. He kissed her. And the crowd erupted. The reception was a masterpiece of organized joy. The Gaegeum and Dundun musicians shifted into celebration mode, their merged sound transforming the estate into something that had never quite existed before and would never quite exist again. Korean traditional jeongunbo percussion met West African juju guitar. The result was electric. Guests who had been rigid with proper decorum an hour ago were now on their feet. Chief AfroKorean led the first dance, an impromptu agidigbo that cleared a circle around him as guests clapped and cheered. His agbada flew magnificently as he moved. He's 73 years old. Manager Yoon murmured to a colleague. He's extraordinary, the colleague replied. Amara's sisters formed a delegation of unstoppable joy, pulling reluctant Korean executives into rhythms that politely but firmly refused to be ignored. Amara's grandmother sat at the head table and watched everything with the serene satisfaction of a woman who had predicted this outcome all along. And, at the center of it all, Amara and Jitae. They danced slowly in the middle of the controlled celebration, not performing for anyone, just existing in the eye of their own hurricane. His hand at her waist, her head resting briefly against his chest, the music swirling around them. Min Sungjun, she asked softly. In custody. He'll face the appropriate consequences. And Kim Suyeon? Also in custody. She'll be transferred to the proper authorities. He paused. Her father's crimes don't belong to her, but her own choices are hers to answer for. Amara nodded slowly. Will it ever stop? The threats, the politics, the enemies? He considered the question honestly, because she deserved honesty above all. Not entirely. My world doesn't work that way. But today, I eliminated the most serious threat. And I'm restructuring certain operations. He looked down at her. I've been making changes. Quietly. For months. Moving away from certain alliances. Redirecting toward legitimate enterprise. She looked up at him.
Why?
He held her gaze. Because you can't be a nurse who heals people while your husband is the source of wounds. That contradiction would have destroyed both of us eventually. She studied him. How far along are these changes? 60% complete. Within 2 years, AfroKorean Global Holdings will be fully legitimate. Every subsidiary, every partnership, and the people who depend on the current structure for protection?
His jaw tightened.
Transition plans are in place. Livelihoods are being preserved through legitimate enterprise where possible. I'm not walking away and leaving people vulnerable. That's not who I am. She was quiet for a moment. That's who you're becoming, she said gently. He absorbed that. Yes. I'm proud of you. 3 words. Simple. And somehow, from her, more powerful than anything else anyone had ever said to him. He pulled her slightly closer. Tell me something. Anything. When I kissed your ring in the hospital, in front of everyone, were you embarrassed? She laughed. Genuinely. I was terrified, she admitted. I thought I was dreaming. Then I thought there must be a camera somewhere. Then I thought whatever happens next, at least those women will never forget it. And were you glad? She looked up at him. I was glad you came. I'm always glad when you come. He smiled. A real smile. Unhurried and warm and belonging entirely to her. The crowd around them roared as Chief AfroKorean attempted to teach a Korean senator the Ajadigbo. The senator, to everyone's astonishment, was a quick learner. The estate blazed with light and sound. 2 cultures learning each other's rhythms. An impossible union celebrated by 300 witnesses who would carry the memory of this day for the rest of their lives. 2 days after the wedding, the formal meeting took place in Jitae's boardroom. Not his compound. Not a private restaurant. His boardroom. Every senior executive of AfroKorean Global Holdings sat around the long table. Every department head. Every division chief. At the head of the table sat Jitae. And beside him, in a chair that had never previously existed at that table, sat Amara. The room hummed with suppressed confusion. No one dared voice it. Jitae opened the meeting. Min Sungjun has been removed from his position effective immediately. Legal proceedings are underway. His responsibilities have been redistributed pending a permanent appointment. He paused, looked around the table. Additionally, I am announcing 2 structural changes to this organization. First, AfroKorean Global Holdings will be completing a full transition to legitimate enterprise within 24 months. The timeline, methodology, and transition protocols have already been drafted. They will be distributed to all division heads today. Silence. Tension. Several men exchanged glances they thought were subtle. They were not subtle. Second, Jitae continued, effective immediately, Mrs. Amara Kong AfroKorean will be joining the board as executive director of the AfroKorean Foundation's new healthcare and community development initiative. If the first announcement had created tension, the second created earthquake. One executive, older, silver-haired, a holdover from the organization's previous era, cleared his throat. Chairman, with respect, the board appointment of is not a suggestion, Jitae said quietly. It is a decision. The executive pressed on. She has no background in corporate governance. She has a background in keeping people alive when everyone else has given up on them. Jitae's voice remained perfectly level. She has a background in managing crisis, building trust across cultures, making critical decisions under pressure, and serving communities that corporate entities consistently fail to reach. If you can tell me that isn't useful to this organization, I'm interested in your reasoning. The executive closed his mouth. No one else spoke. Jitae looked at every face around the table, one by one, the look that made grown men recalculate their positions. My wife is not an accessory. She is not a PR gesture. She is not a symbol. She is a partner. And she will be treated as such, in this room, and in every room this organization occupies. He paused. Is that understood? Around the table, heads nodded. Some reluctantly, some with genuine respect. All definitively. Then Jitae looked at Amara. And the look was entirely different. Private.
Warm. Proud.
She met his eyes and smiled. Later that afternoon, she walked back into Seoul Royal Medical Center for the last time as a nurse. Not permanently, just for one afternoon. To tie off the threads she had left behind. The lobby hushed when she entered. It always would now. But she walked through the silence the same way she always had. Head high, pace steady, eyes clear. Her colleagues gathered, some with genuine warmth, some with complicated expressions that mixed remorse and admiration, all with respect. The hospital director, Director Choi Min-young, approached. She was visibly nervous, which was unprecedented. Mrs. Adekunle, I want to personally apologize for the environment that you endured in this institution, the culture that allowed. Director Choi. Amara's voice was gentle but firm. I appreciate the apology, but what I would appreciate more is structural change. New policies, a task force for international staff support, training programs addressing unconscious bias. The director blinked. I've drafted a proposal, Amara continued, producing a document from her bag. The Adekunle Foundation is prepared to co-fund the initiative. All we require is the hospital's commitment to genuine implementation. The director took the document. Read the cover page. Read it again. This is very comprehensive. I've had 8 years of field research. A pause. Then the director nodded slowly. We'll review this with the board immediately. Wonderful. Amara smiled. I look forward to hearing from you. She walked to her old nursing station, ran her hand along the counter she had stood behind for thousands of hours, thought about every patient, every forebag, every frightened teenager before surgery, every patient who had seen her first as a Black woman and eventually as their most trusted caregiver. Dr. Park Sung-ho, the chief medical director, approached quietly. He was one of the few who had consistently treated her with professional respect. We'll miss you, he said simply. I'm not gone. I'll be back to consult on the Foundation's healthcare initiatives. You'll probably see more of me than before. He smiled. Good. A junior nurse, a young Ghanaian woman who had joined the hospital 3 months ago, hovered nervously nearby. She was the newest international staff member. Amara had noticed her on her last shift, quietly enduring the same sideways glances, the same subtle diminishments that Amara had spent 8 years navigating. Amara approached her. Adiz, right? The young woman's eyes widened.
Yes.
Yes, I didn't think you knew my name. I know everyone's name. Amara held out a business card. This is my direct line. The Adekunle Foundation's healthcare initiative is launching mentorship support for international medical professionals in Korea. You qualify. Adiz took the card with trembling hands. She swallowed. I saw what happened. When he came for you. When those cars arrived, and everyone she stopped. How did you get through all those years before that? Without people knowing? Without losing yourself? Amara considered the question. The same way she considered everything.
Carefully.
Honestly. I remembered that their blindness was never about me, she finally said. What people refused to see said everything about the limits of their vision and nothing about the reality of my worth.
She paused.
You were excellent before anyone saw you. You will be excellent long after they do. Don't let the years in between make you smaller. That's their limitation, trying to colonize your potential. Adi's eyes filled. She nodded rapidly, unable to speak. Amara squeezed her shoulder once, then walked to the exit. At the threshold of the glass doors, she paused, looked back at the lobby she had walked through hundreds of times, at the marble floors, at the polished windows, at the space where everything had changed. She breathed it in once, then walked through the doors into the light. Outside, Jitae's car waited. He stepped out when he saw her, said nothing, just held the door open, the way he always would. She got in. He followed. The car pulled away from Seoul Royal Medical Center, and both of them looked straight ahead, not back. 6 months later, the AfroKorean Foundation Healthcare and Community Development Initiative launched on a Thursday morning in spring. The event was held in a new community center in Itaewon, one of Seoul's most diverse neighborhoods. The building was bright, modern, fully funded. The guest list included nursing graduates from 6 countries, international medical professionals working across Korea, policy makers, hospital directors, and in the back row, sitting together with the quiet satisfaction of people who had survived the journey. Chief AfroKorean. Amara's parents, her father finally dry-eyed, her mother bringing a full box of tissues that she shared generously. Amara's grandmother, dressed magnificently, looking as though she had personally orchestrated all of this. Manager Yoon, maintaining professional composure and failing slightly. At the podium, Amara spoke. 8 years ago, I arrived in Seoul with a scholarship, 2 suitcases, and the absolute conviction that I belonged here. That conviction was tested every single day. She paused. But I never stopped believing it. Not when people questioned my credentials. Not when they questioned my presence. Not when they questioned what I deserved. The room was absolutely quiet. Because belonging is not something another person grants you. It's something you claim. Through excellence. Through resilience. Through the refusal to become what other people's limitations tell you that you are. She looked at the faces before her. Young nurses. Doctors. Healthcare workers who had crossed oceans to serve. This foundation exists to support every one of you who is doing what I did. Building something real in a place that sometimes forgets to see you. We are here to make sure no one does this alone. She stepped back from the podium. The applause was immediate and sustained. In the back of the room, Jitae did not clap. He never clapped in public. But his eyes were fixed on her with an intensity that the guests around him noticed and instinctively looked away from. Because that kind of love was private even in public. Afterward, at the reception, he found her in a conversation with 3 junior nurses. He waited. He was extraordinarily patient. When the nurses finally dispersed, a little breathless from realizing who had been standing 3 feet away, Jitae stepped beside Amara. You were remarkable, he said quietly. I just said what was true. That's what made it remarkable. She turned to look at him. He was exactly the same as the day she'd met him. The sharp jaw, the piercing dark eyes, the dragon tattoo curling at his collar, the impeccable black suit, the controlled stillness that made every room smaller around him. But she saw something now that she hadn't been able to see in the emergency room 3 years ago. Behind all of it, beneath the armor and the silence and the decades of calculated distance, a man who was quietly, completely, irreversibly at peace. Are you happy? She asked. He considered the question, the way he considered everything, without deflection. I have not had practice with happiness, he said honestly. It feels, he searched for the word, unfamiliar. Scary? Occasionally. But, his eyes softened. But worth it. Entirely worth it. She reached up. Her hand rested against his jaw. The same gesture she had made on the night before their wedding. We're just getting started, she said. I know. His hand covered hers. Held it there. Tell me something, he said. Anything. The woman in the hospital. The one who told you to know your place. Amara's expression shifted slightly. Mrs. Park. Her husband's company has recently experienced some investment difficulties. Amara's eyes narrowed. Jitae. Nothing illegal. Simply a natural consequence of certain market corrections that my team may have had some awareness of in advance. Jitae. Her husband also received an anonymous but strongly worded letter from the hospital board regarding his wife's conduct toward staff. Did he? He did. Amara pressed her lips together, trying very hard not to smile. That's completely unnecessary. Yes. You shouldn't have done it. Possibly. It's not how I would have handled it.
No.
You handled it with grace and generosity, which is why I love you. He paused. And why I handle certain things differently so you don't have to. She finally laughed. Quiet and real. You're impossible. I've heard this before. From me. Multiple times. And yet you married me anyway. Against my better judgment. No, he said, and his voice was warm now. With your best judgment. You've always had excellent judgment. She shook her head, but she was smiling. And he was smiling too. Quietly. Completely. Entirely. Evening. They returned to the compound as the sun set over Seoul. The city glittered below them. Towers of light against a darkening sky. The Han River a ribbon of silver in the distance. They stood on their balcony, the same balcony where they had watched the dawn before the wedding, and let the city breathe around them. Jitae spoke first. I've been thinking about Nigeria. Amara turned to look at him. Your family's home. Your father's invitation. When? 3 weeks. I want to see where you grew up. Where your grandmother told those stories. Where the woman I married was shaped. Amara's heart moved. You remembered. I remember everything you've ever told me. Every detail. Every story. He paused. I keep them. She reached out. Took his hand. He'll make you eat everything, she warned. My father. He cooks for armies. I look forward to it. And my grandmother will interrogate you for hours. She already approved of my shoulders. The groundwork is laid. She laughed. He smiled. They stood quietly for a while. The city moving below them. The future opening ahead. What do you want? She asked eventually. Not for the foundation. Not for the company. For yourself. What do you want from this life? He thought about it seriously. Mornings like this, he said. Where nothing is on fire and I'm standing beside you. That's modest for a man of your ambitions. My ambitions changed when I met you. He glanced at her. What about you? She considered. I want to build something that lasts. The foundation. The healthcare work. Something that means that what I went through makes the path easier for whoever comes next. You're already doing that. I want to do it better. You will. A pause. I want to bring our children to Korea and Nigeria, she said quietly. Both. So they grow up knowing both worlds are theirs. Neither borrowed. Both owned. Jitae was very still. Our children, he repeated. I'm just saying. Eventually. When we're ready. He turned to face her fully. His expression, usually so contained, was entirely open. Children, he said slowly. Too much.
No.
Something profound moved through his face. I had simply never let myself imagine it. I always considered myself too dangerous, complicated, too deeply scarred to start fresh. He met her eyes. Yes. She stepped closer, put both hands on his chest.
Jitae.
Every scar you have tells the story of how hard you fought to survive long enough to find something worth living for. She held his gaze. You made it. You're here. And everything you're afraid you'll pass on to them. The resilience, the loyalty, the absolute refusal to quit. Those are gifts, not curses. He was silent, but his hands came up to cover hers. Besides, she added, her voice lightening deliberately, with my nursing instincts and your strategic paranoia, our children will be completely unstoppable. He exhaled, a sound that was half laugh, half relief. God help their teachers. God help their enemies. They'll have none. I'll handle that personally. Jitae. I'm kidding. Are you? A pause. Mostly. She laughed. He pulled her close. His arms wrapped around her fully. Her head rested against his chest. His chin came down to rest against her temple. The city moved below them, Seoul blazing into the night. Two people from different worlds, standing in a space they had carved out together. Not given. Built. Brick by brick. Sacrifice by sacrifice. Choice by choice. He pressed his lips to her temple. Stayed there. I love you, he said quietly. That will never be complicated. Whatever else changes, whatever the world becomes, that stays. She closed her eyes. I love you too, she replied. From the moment I refused to let you die. I think I chose you before I even knew I was choosing. A long silence.
Warm.
Complete. Don't ever stop arguing with me, he said. About the bodyguards. The corporate decisions. The unnecessary punitive market corrections. She snorted. All of it. I have enough people who agree with me. I need someone who tells me the truth. Always. Promise me. She pulled back enough to look up at him. I promise, she said. And you promise me something. Anything. Every time you're about to do something terrifying in that compound, something that takes you to the edge of who you're becoming, you talk to me first. Even if it's classified? Especially if it's classified. He studied her. You are the most demanding person I have ever loved, and you are the most complicated. We're perfectly matched. He held her gaze. Yes, he agreed. We are. He kissed her. The city blazed below them. And the stars, those same stars that burned over Seoul and Lagos, over Tokyo and Busan and Dubai, over every place they had traveled and every place they had yet to go, held steady in the sky, witnessing, remembering, a love that had begun in an emergency room, built through flowers and late-night texts and rainy evening drives, tested through threats and betrayal and public humiliation, proven through vows spoken in 3 languages, and still just beginning. 1 year later, the plaque was mounted at the entrance of the new International Nursing Staff Lounge in Seoul Royal Medical Center. Simple, elegant,
Permanent.
this space was built in honor of every healthcare professional who served with excellence before they were seen. May you always know, you were never invisible. The AfroKorean Foundation. Amara stood before it on the morning of its unveiling. She wore a structured blazer and her engagement ring. Her nursing days were behind her in their original form, but her work had multiplied into something larger. Behind her stood Jitae, silent as always, close as always. Adiz, the young Ghanaian nurse, stood to her left, now 3 months into the Foundation's mentorship program and already unrecognizable in her confidence. The new hospital director gave a speech. The policies Amara had proposed were now fully implemented. International staff complaint rates had dropped 60% in 8 months. 3 structural changes in hiring and support were now being adopted by hospitals across Korea. It wasn't everything. There was more to do. There would always be more to do. But it was real. And it was lasting. And it had started with a woman who refused to walk past suffering, who saved a stranger's life because it was right, who faced mockery and discrimination and armed threats with the same steady, unbreakable grace, who chose love without letting love unmake her. When the speeches ended, the crowd dispersed. Jitae appeared at Amara's side. He looked at the plaque, then at her. How does it feel?
She thought about it.
About the 8 years before him, about the emergency room, about the flowers, about the ring, about 10 black SUVs entering a hospital compound on a morning that changed everything, about vows in 3 languages, about building something real from something that had every reason to break. It feels, she said carefully, like the beginning. He nodded slowly, as if he had expected no other answer, and then he took her hand, interlaced their fingers, his, scarred and tattooed, and carrying the weight of a history he was still rewriting. Hers, warm and certain, and entirely her own. Together, they walked out into the Seoul morning, the city moving around them, the future wide and unknown, and entirely theirs. Not because it was given, but because they had both been willing, desperately, stubbornly, courageously willing to choose it. Every single day. This story was for everyone who has ever felt invisible in a room they earned their place in. For every person who built something extraordinary in silence, waiting for the world to catch up to what they already knew about themselves. Love does not always arrive the way we expect. Sometimes it arrives bleeding on a table at midnight. Sometimes it arrives in 10 black SUVs. Sometimes it arrives in the form of someone who sees you completely, scars and strength and all, and decides that what they see is worth every risk. When it does,
Hold on.
because the story it builds will outlast everything that tried to prevent it. If this story moved you, if Amara's resilience spoke to something in you, or if Jitae's love reminded you of what you deserve, please take a moment to let someone else find it too. Like this story, share it, and subscribe for more Afro-Korean dark romance that will keep you up all night. Because this is only one story, and there are so many more to tell. Thank you for watching.